If you speed read everything, you're going to screw up your learning. This idea is pushed onto you a lot by the self-development guru types. You know, the ones who give the talks and all that. And they recommend this idea. They propose this idea as a way to read more. And the assumption is that the faster you read, the better. Always. And there's no nuance to that. And this idea makes me cringe because it's a harmful idea, especially for new readers who actually want to enjoy their reading. A lot of the speed reading techniques they propose sound good on paper, but if you actually apply them, it's so wasteful and harmful to your learning. You know the ones, the ridiculous techniques where it's like, I read a book a day with this, or I read 10 books a week, or something crazy like that. And the techniques involve like, you know, you get the margins and you jump between them and process everything on the page. And it's like, how well does that work really? If you apply techniques like that everywhere, you're going to finish the book as clueless as you first started. You're not going to remember much. You're going to take books that are meant to be treasured and savored, and then you're going to speed through them like a robot. And to me, that doesn't sound like a healthy reading life. It's like going to a Michelin star restaurant and the waiter presents this delicious, intricate, crafted meal with all the unique flavor profiles. And you can see all the effort that's been put into it. But then you just take it and shove it down your throat. That's the kind of thing that speed reading achieves if you don't use it correctly. Of course, I won't leave you hanging. I would never do that. Because speed reading, even though I don't like it, and I take generally a strong stance against it, it has its value and it has its merits. The problem is the gurus recommend it without any nuance, because there is nuance. They present it like a one-size-fits-all solution that you're going to take speed reading and you're going to use it for every book you read from now on. And that type of thinking is going to sabotage your reading completely. The real value of speed reading is being able to be flexible with it, to be able to adjust your approach according to what you read and what inside the book you're reading. That's the only way you can use speed reading to read more, but then not sacrifice that comprehension in turn. There's two angles to look at speed reading, and the first is probably the most important. It's being able to adjust your approach within the book according to what you're reading. This will make more sense with an example. So imagine I asked you about a book you read recently. What did you read? But then I asked you everything. Can you tell me everything you read? And you look at me thinking, no, of course not. That's stupid. Why would you remember everything? But then if I asked you to say, just give me 2 or 3 ideas, that's easy. You can do that. You can take the big ideas, remember them, and kind of abandon all the rest, the tangents, the side points, the bits of context that are important but not really central to the book. And to you, that's a successful reading. You've done what you wanted to do. So if you keep that in mind and then you reflect back to the guru speed reading, it doesn't make any sense, because not everything in the book is equal. Not everything in the book deserves to be treated with the same speed and the same depth. You know, if you take any book, say this one for example, and you go through it all, not everything in there is going to be valuable. Not everything in there is going to be insightful or something worth caring about. So why would you read it the same speed? But then on the other hand, you'll get like chapters and paragraphs that are truly precious, things that you didn't know, things that speak out to you. And you're going to slow down for them. And this is where speed reading comes in. Because unlike the gurus here, we're not going to speed read everything. We're just going to slow down for the parts that matter. Reading fast makes sense only if you're reading, you know, the context and the tangents, because you don't really need much mental effort to process them. Or in other words, you can afford to speed past them without it hurting your reading. But then what about the difficult parts? The parts that make us think, the parts that kind of challenge us. We can't speed past them, because by the time we've sped past the first one, we're going to meet the second one. And then we're not even going to have understood the first one before doing that. It's really essential to slow down, understand, and kind of let your mind savor it. When have you ever encountered a difficult idea that was easy to move past? Never. If the book presents to you something that challenges you, then speed reading past it is not only illogical, but it's impossible. Because the fact that it challenges you means you have to think for a second. You have to stop. You have to ruminate, you have to wrestle with the ideas, and you have to put in that effort to then elevate your understanding. And that's exactly where the nuance in speed reading is. You have to be able to adjust your speed depending on what you're reading. There's a great example to show this, and you might be in college now, you might have been in college, but you probably have that experience either way, or in school, let's say. And I'm sure at some point you had to watch a pre-recorded lecture. And of course, who can be asked for that? That's long. It's boring. So you put it on 2 times speed, or if you're crazy, 3 times speed. And you might expect me to say that that's a bad thing, but why? It makes perfect sense. The professor might be talking really slowly, or repeating things you already know, or saying unimportant stuff like housekeeping. And all of that makes sense to speed through. But there's a problem still, because if you keep up that speed throughout the whole video, you're going to miss something important. Because while it's okay to speed past the unimportant stuff, you're also speeding past the important things, the things that are new to you, the things that are challenging to you. And that's exactly why we pause the video, we reverse, we rewind, we take notes. So of course you treat it differently depending on what is being said. And if you've got another student who kept up the 3 times speed throughout the whole thing, they're going to miss everything, including the important things. And it's exactly the same in reading. Speed reading is stupid if you apply it everywhere. But then if you apply it with intent and know when and where to use it, it makes total sense and you won't lose any of your comprehension. But that's not the end of it. There's another angle that the gurus fail to mention, because there we adjusted our reading depending on the material within the book. But now, what about the book itself? Do we read some books fast? Do we read some books slow? And this presents to you another harmful idea that the self-development types kind of suggest to you. Do we change how fast we read from book to book? And this is such an important question because it can make or break the entire thing. The self-help guys that give those talks on speed reading, they say they can read a book a day with all these techniques they use. And the thing is, I believe them. I believe them. I don't think they're lying at all. Because if you pay attention and kind of understand where they're coming from, you'll see that their idea of reading is quite narrow. I'm being very general here, but you'll see that a lot of them associate reading with self-development. So all the books they read are going to be the self-help books, the habit books, finance books, all these practical books that are used for self-improvement. The ones you see again and again in those self-help spheres online. In the long time I've been immersed into the online book community, or whatever you want to call it, you don't really see them talking about classics or philosophy books or history books. It's only that one section in the library of self-development, self-help. So with that in mind, I see their hype of speed reading within that context. The context of self-help non-fiction, but they don't really tell you that. And that creates this trap that thousands of readers are going to walk into. They're going to think that speed reading must be good and I must be able to apply it everywhere, right? That is perfect self-sabotage. And if they apply it to everything indiscriminately, then they're going to be left unsatisfied. Not every book can be treated the same, and that includes the speed in which you read it. From a self-help guru's perspective, it makes sense to speed read a practical book, like the self-help books. Those types of books, they're not going to be really philosophical or difficult to understand. They present the problem to you in a clear way that's easy to understand, and they give you the solutions that you need to get to the end. So it's unlikely that any of the ideas within them are going to be difficult to understand. And the gurus can speed read it without losing much in understanding, because the ideas are not difficult to wrestle with. But let's say you take that principle and apply it to all your books. You're screwing yourself over there. And it's so obvious that I almost don't need to argue it, because it's like, would you speed read War and Peace? Would you speed read the Histories by Herodotus? Would you speed read something like Plato's The Republic, or some history book, or anything else like that? Of course not. It doesn't make any sense. Not only do you want to savor the experience and actually enjoy the book, but some books, by their nature, need to be read slowly. Especially books like philosophy or science. They can't be speed read because if they can, then they're not difficult and they're not challenging us to grow. And that's especially true with fiction. Because fiction, you need to slow down and become immersed in the world for it to have any effect on you. It feels almost criminal to take a book by Dostoevsky and then blitz through it as if it's a short story. You don't give yourself time to enter the world, to feel the emotions, to see the bigger picture. Of course, you get to the end a bit faster, but it doesn't matter if your reading quality sucked. So just to recap, the speed reading that is presented to you by the guru self-development types is one-dimensional. And if you apply that everywhere, you're going to sabotage your reading. Yes, you'll read faster, but your quality will suffer and your quantity goes up at the expense of that. The real strength is in being able to adjust your approach as you go, both within the book and between books. Some ideas you can afford to speed through, whereas other ideas you ought to slow down and digest more thoroughly. But then there's also some books that, by their very nature, deserve to be read slowly. Things like fiction or even non-fiction books that are more complicated and dense with wisdom. The mark of a strong reader is knowing when and where to change your speed. So I hope you can take that principle and apply it everywhere in your reading life. And of course that will get your volume up, but also maintain the quality of your reading, which is the most important thing, easily, forever. And of course, thank you for watching.